Tishdile and welcome to Tibet This Week. This is Sakina Bhatt with another edition of Weekly News on Tibet, His Holiness the Dalai Lama and Central Tibetan Administration. Let's look at the headlines first. His Holiness the Dalai Lama meets the faculty of Dharamshala Govt College. His Holiness the Dalai Lama's exclusive interview with Hakka TV Taiwan. CTA President begins 6-day official visit to the United States. Tibet Museum and International Coalition of Sites of Conscience host 2019 Asian Sites of Conscience Regional Meeting. The Election Commissioner visited Australia to impart the revised electoral rules and regulations to the Tibetan people. Held Kalon request Appointment of Sowa-Rigpa Advisor to the Ministry of Ayush. Representative Tashi Phuntsok calls upon Member of European Parliament Tomas Zdechovsky. Tibetan monk sentenced for the second time by Chinese authorities in Tibet. Member of the Parliament Venerable Thupten Wangchen tours 30 European countries calling for dialogue for peace. His Holiness the Dalai Lama met with a group of faculty members of the Dharamshala Govt College at his residence on Monday this week. The faculty had come to seek His Holiness's blessings and guidance on the newly introduced 6-month certificate course on the revival of ancient Indian knowledge and tradition. Expressing his appreciation on the initiative, His Holiness mentioned that the human beings essentially create the most of the problems facing the world today.
Existing education come from West is no knowledge how to tackle our emotions. Only in this country, over 3,000 years, the practice of shamatha, practice of vipassana, already there before Buddha come. Buddha himself, product of these ancient Indian tradition. So nowadays, Indian knowledge is the best way to tackle our emotion.
His Holiness the Dalai Lama gave an exclusive interview with Hakka TV Taiwan. In the interview, His Holiness spoke about compassion, the shortcomings of modern education system, importance of inner peace, and expressed his concern regarding the ongoing protest in Hong Kong. Let's take a look at the short clip of the interview.
Do Your Holiness pay attention to the protests in Hong Kong recently?
Hong Kong, and when Deng Xiaoping, you see, he create one country, two system. Realistic, wonderful.
Yes.
But now, recent weeks, you see, very much sort of disturbances. So I feel some worry. It's better, I think, everywhere. Peace is the best way. Hoping, right? Hoping. Very important. You see, any problem we can solve through talk, or not through sort of some negative influence, under the influence of anger, no use.
CTA President Dr. Lobsang Sangays began a 6-day official visit to the United States with a public address and interaction with the Tibetan community in Minnesota on Sunday this week. President addressed more than 400 Tibetans at the invitation of Tibetan American Foundation of Minnesota. The official visit also included a series of meetings with the dignitaries in the U.S. capital, Washington, D.C., to discuss the new Tibet Policy Act and to highlight the importance of religious freedom, particularly the issue of reincarnation. Dr. Sangays attended the first reception ever hosted for the Central Tibetan Administration at the U.S. Congress by the House Democracy Partnership. Speaker Nancy Pelosi gave a fascinating speech about her support for Tibet, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and the Central Tibetan Administration. Speaker Pelosi said she would help make the new Tibet Policy Act a priority in Congress. She stated that the United States loses all moral authority if they fail to stand up against China.
So when it's my turn to speak, I mentioned what we saw in the morning. And I said, well, as long as they're doing this, we cannot ignore the human rights violations of China, and just because of commercial interests of that, we lose all moral authority to fight human rights violators any place in the world.
Dr. Scindia had a roundtable discussion with members of House Democracy Partnership Commission in DC on Tuesday this week. Dr. Scindia touched on various issues and challenges for Tibet, including China asserting influence everywhere. He pointed out the problems faced by Tibetan refugees and cited a recent case where 6 Tibetan refugees were deported to China. Dr. Scindia also spoke at the Center for Strategic and International Studies, a prestigious DC think tank, which was attended by more than 150-strong audiences. The title of the public talk was Reincarnation in Tibetan Buddhism, the Importance of Religious Freedom.
Reincarnation is a Tibetan invention. We invented it. This is a unique Tibetan tradition. I know China is the manufacturing hub of the world. They produce a lot of things, they make a lot of duplicates, but as far as reincarnation is concerned, they have zero chance. Because we invented it on 4,000 meters high, and Beijing cannot do anything about it. Because it's very unique, it's only in the Tibetan Buddhist world, the practice of reincarnation.
He also explained new Tibet Policy Act 2019, which will be soon introduced by Chairman McGovern and Chris Smith in the House and Senator Rubio and Ben Cardin in the Senate. Center for Strategic and International Studies is ranked as #1 for national security as a think tank. Dr. Scindia met with Senator Dan Feinstein, the Senator for California, who agreed to co-sponsor the new Tibet Policy Act on Wednesday this week. Dr. Scindia also met with Sam Brownback, the Ambassador at Large for Religious Freedom. The purpose of the meeting was mainly to discuss the new Tibet Policy Act, since it emphasizes religious freedom for Tibetans as well. The new bill also emphasizes other important issues such as Tibet's environment and funding and strengthening the central Tibetan administration. Sekyong pointed out that China has not signed the UN Convention on the Protection and Use of Transboundary Watercourses and International Lakes and is a threat to 1.5 billion people who are dependent on the fresh water from streams flowing from Tibet. Sekyong also explained the middle way approach and how it is a win-win situation for both the Chinese and Tibetans. The inauguration ceremony of 2019 Asian Sites of Conscience regional meeting was held at the new Tibet Museum auditorium at the Central Tibetan Administration on Wednesday this week. The conference is jointly organized by the Tibet Museum and International Coalition of Sites of Conscience. The 2019 regional meeting will create a space where participants can identify, share and exchange lessons and best practices in confronting a colonist heritage and its contemporary forms of inter-ethnic, divisive and racial violence. Throughout the meeting, participants will learn and experience firsthand Tibet's effort to preserve its history and culture, also explore and address the unique colonial legacies in countries like the Philippines, Cambodia, Sri Lanka and India.
By using personal stories and testimonies, the new museum will share our knowledge of Tibet's diverse and distinct culture, our memories of life in Tibet before the Chinese occupation, and our fears for our country's future. It would carry the hope and the aspiration of the entire Tibetan population, both inside and outside Tibet. Our museum do not claim to be neutral. Our museum deliberately challenges the China's version of Tibet past and its distorted version of the present. With this museum, we seek to reclaim our right to tell our own story on our own term and in our own vote.
The 3-day meeting will discuss on the theme Reconstructing Memories, Objects, Narratives and the Legacies of Colonialism.
All the coalition participants, especially the Asian participants, are here. For 3 days we have a meeting, and we want to find out some ways where we can promote peace, non-violence, common harmony through preserving our history.
The Election Commissioner, Mr. Sonam Chopel Chosur, addressed the Tibetan people in Australia about the revised electoral rules and regulations of the Tibetan election system, with special reference to the amendment of the electoral system on Saturday last week. Election Commissioner Sonam Chopel Chosur visited the Office of Tibet on 8 September 2019. He will be continuing his official tour to Newcastle and Sydney. CTA President Wangchen of Department of Health made a formal request for the appointment of Sowa-Rigpa Advisor in the Ministry of Ayush of the Government of India during a celebration marking the first Sowa-Rigpa, generally known as the Tibetan Science of Healing Day at India International Center in New Delhi on Wednesday this week. Around 70 traditional medical practitioners and students of Tibetan and non-Tibetan heritage from India and abroad attended the ceremony. Kalon Wangchen noted the positive impact that Sowa-Rigpa has not just in the Tibetan community but in the international community as well.
I wish to request that Sowa-Rigpa Advisor in the Ministry of Ayush need to be appointed. We request you to kindly take this very matter personally, you take the matter to the concerned authority. And also we request you to increase the Sowa-Rigpa member in Central Council of Indian Medicine. So these are the two areas that we wish to make through you to the Ministry of Ayush to take into consideration.
So I hope the deliberation in this 2 days seminar will help us to arrive at certain conclusion, and we hope that deliberation of this seminar should be sent to the Ministry of Ayush for the actionable points. We will certainly take action on whatever possible by the Ministry of Ayush. With these words, I extend my congratulations to the organizers for taking this initiative for celebrating first Sowa-Rigpa Day, and I hope the deliberation in this seminar will be a huge success.
Mr. Tashi Phuntsok, representative of Office of Tibet, Brussels, met with a member of European Parliament, Mr. Tomas, Zdechovsky, in the latter's office on Tuesday this week. Mr. Phuntsok had earlier discussed with him on the re-establishment of Tibet Intergroup in the European Parliament. Once again, they reassessed the situation and discussed ways to further the case. Mr. Zdechovsky assured his full support for all issues on Tibet. Mr. Zdechovsky is from the Czech Republic and from the European People's Party, the biggest party in the European Parliament. A Tibetan monk from Ngaba County's Kirti Monastery who was arrested more than a year ago was sentenced to 3 years in prison by Chinese authorities last week as per sources. In July last year, Kirti Monastery's monk Lobsang Dorji, aged about 36 years, was picked up by the Chinese police authorities from his monastic quarters in the middle of the night on suspicion of contacting with the outside world. He was kept under incommunicado detention since then, and neither his family members nor the monastery had much information about his whereabouts until the recent sentencing. This is the second sentencing of Lobsang Dorji. He was earlier arrested on 23rd May 2008 for showing disrespect to the patriotic re-education campaign which was being imposed on the Kirti Monastery. He was sentenced to 2 years imprisonment then. Europe Tour Dialogue for Peace, led by a member of the Tibetan Parliament, Thupten Wangchen, reached Paris on Sunday this week.
It's time! What do we want? Peace and dialogue! What do we want?
The team reached London on Tuesday this week, where they had a series of interactions with the local Tibetans and parliamentarians. The team met with honourable members of Parliament Kerry McCarthy and Angus Brandon McNeill at the Parliament building. Marking 60 years of occupation of Tibet by China, the team carrying the truth lamp is touring 30 European countries, calling for resumption of dialogue between the Chinese government and the representatives of His Holiness the Dalai Lama and creating awareness on deteriorating situation inside Tibet. Thupten Wangchen dropped a letter of peace in Chinese embassy's letterbox. So much for this week's edition of Tibet This Week. See you next time and have a great weekend.